There's probably no event in our lives that brings people together more than when you get together for a funeral and say goodbye to somebody you love and care about. I was their soccer coach 35 years ago, and their dad died at the age of 67. And being that he is a male that doesn't go to church, they put me on speed dial for those kinds of people. And so the family came in yesterday to talk about the funeral. And one of the sons comes up and he says, you know, Mr. Borling. And I said, no, not Mr. Borling anymore. You're 45 years old. You can call me Don. And he said, you were my coach, you know, in soccer. And I said, yeah, I was, wasn't I? And he said, you know, you weren't a very good coach, but you were a lot of fun, which is the story of my life when it came to coaching. So anyway, I talked to the gentleman's wife, and two of his sons were there. And his one son, Chris, is a Chicago police officer. And he started talking about his dad. And he just kept talking and talking and talking. And I said, well, would you like to do a eulogy for your dad on Monday? And he said, well, as you can see, I'll start talking about my dad and I won't stop. And I said, no, I got the Lutheran white cane. And I said, if you're up there talking about your dad, it gets to be 10 minutes, you're gone. You're gone. And he said, oh, okay, I'll keep it to 10 minutes. But anyway, I think what his concern was, because his dad was not a churchgoer and was not religious, that a Lutheran minister is going to come into the funeral home and do a really religious service, which has nothing to do with his dad. And I said, well, you probably just don't know me very well. But he said, you know, my dad didn't go to church. I got that impression. But he was a man of principle and a man of morals. And he taught us lessons every day. And my dad was loyal to my mom and to us and to his friends. And he said, I know my dad's gone now, but his spirit is going to live inside of me every single day. Because he lived his life, and we watched him live his life. And that's how he taught us. And I look at Chris, I said, you're starting to sound like me. You know? He said, really? And I said, well, I said, you're worried that your dad's funeral is going to be a religious thing that doesn't make any sense. I know that. But I said, funerals are not about religion. Funerals are about the human spirit. And I said, funerals are not about what religion you may or may not be. It's not about going to church. Religion is about what your dad meant to you and his family and his friends. So you can relax. It's going to be okay. You know, most Sunday mornings on my way to church, I call my brother Jim. He's an early riser. He lives out east, and he's a retired music therapist. He's a very spiritual guy. And I said, Jim, what should I talk about this morning? And he said, you know, just tell people all the gunk they said, just tell people to let it go. So that's what my brother says. Just let it go. Don't bottle it up. Let it go. And I said, that's all? But he has a small church, but it's not really it's more of a meditation group. And they get together and they meditate, and they start their service with 30 minutes of total silence. About as long as it took me to find the gospel lesson for this morning. And but could you imagine if we did that? 30 minutes? I mean, I remember when I was younger, we go to the Lutheran church and have a silent prayer, and Lutherans get fidgety after about 45 seconds, you know, because Lutherans can't stand it when there isn't some noise in the background. But this morning, I kind of took his advice, and I just sat in the sanctuary for a while and didn't do anything. Nobody else was here. And when I'm silent, I think about stuff. But the problem is, I think about like the stuff I didn't do, or the stuff that I didn't do good enough, the stuff I could have done better. And in the silence, I worry about stuff. I worry about myself or someone in my family. I worry about the church, someone going through a tough time, somebody who can't pay a bill, somebody who's lost a loved one. And so by the end of the silence, I'm so agitated. And then I realized there's a passage I used to quote all the time when we had the thought for the day. And it's in the 46th chapter of Psalms, verse 10, where God says, be still and know that I am God. And I realize I talk about God a lot, Unfortunately, I try to play God a lot, and that's not healthy. It's like God says, Don, be still. I'm God. I'll take care of you. I'll be there. Even the gospel lesson for today, the Pharisees had all kinds of rules about what you could or couldn't do on Sunday, and a lot of churches still have those kind of rules. And the disciples were hungry, they're following Jesus, they went into the garden, they started to pick some food, and the Pharisees said, you can't do that, you can't work on Sunday. And Jesus said, wait a second. I don't care about your rituals. I don't care about your rules. All I want is your kindness. And to me, that's as real today as it was over 2,000 years ago. So today, as we sit here in this humble sanctuary, and you come in the door, and about a half an hour you'll be leaving, what's on your plate? Is your plate kind of full? Is there a lot of stuff on your plate? I think of Ken Konecki, whose father passed away just a few hours ago up on the north side, North Chicago. I think of Chris, who's probably still wondering if the service for his dad tomorrow is going to be too Lutheran or too religious. I think about what's going on in Ukraine. I think about those 5 people who lost their lives at the bottom of the ocean. I think of an unpaid bill, maybe a kid who is hurting. And in the middle of all the stuff on your plate, God says, be still. And just know that I am God. I am me, and you are you, and God is God. And it's important to believe in God. Even more important is knowing that God believes in us. Amen. If you're able to, please rise for the creed.